Okay, good, we're live. Welcome and happy Friday morning. I'm updating that it's very gray and raining these days, but yesterday there was a rainbow, which is always a really nice surprise. How are you?
I'm good. I feel walking really allowing the earth to carry me, allowing my feet to be really spread and to be carried, which is not always my state.
What it looks like when it's not like that?
Strained sometimes with some effort, wanting something, more alert, not so afraid, not alert like afraid, but alert like wanting something. And sometimes also not allowing what really is to be. It's like even with best intentions, but still there. So more and more walking close to earth.
And the part of being carried by earth, that's what kept my attention. So I'll give a little introduction to who we are and what we do. My name is Noah and I'm with Ruti. We are teacher and pupil. We are partners in crime of what really is. We create together. We explore together. We host these lives, and we host a website called What Really Is, and Facebook pages and all. And important to say, it's nice that I said that we are hosting it in a way that this is not ours, and this is not something we consider as, I wouldn't even call a business or a thing. Actually, for us, it's the closest thing to say about it is it's some kind of a movement, emotion, an inquiring community, maybe even to say. And what we wish, our main wish in this exploration, is to discern and to get closer and closer to this tension, recognizing this tension that we have as humans to live out of our thoughts and explanations and interpretations of what really is, which is this one big mystery that we're all part of, that we all are. So living out of the thoughts we have about this, and living not out of the thoughts, but from what really is. And this is also why we called it like that, what really is. And also to keep practicing on the notion that it's not the same. Our thoughts about what really is not the same as what really is. What is what really is? Maybe it's better to be left in silence. Anything you'd like to add?
Just to say that it's not only inside of us, but it's not perceived by the mind and the senses. It's not understood by them, and it is not created by them. They are like participants in that kind of wisdom. So when we are aware we are aware that we are not our thoughts, then there is another realm that comes into the picture, or to be more accurate, we at last pay attention to the fact that we are not thoughts and that the world is not thoughts or things, and that we called it by names, but it isn't. And from there, the whole, it's utterly different. Relationships, where they come from, motivation, where it comes from, the reason we do things, who we are for each other, being one, and what does that really mean? All that and much more emerges from the understanding that we are not our thoughts, and that the realm of thought cannot really grasp what really is. So that's why you don't call it by a different name, or you don't define it, because then that's the faculty of the mind, but it's much, much more richer and yet much simpler than the definitions. It's the thing itself. It's the essence itself.
So this is where we're coming from. This is our wish. And from here, we hope to talk. From here, we hope to listen. We're also human, so forgive us in advance when we don't notice. Maybe we will talk our opinions. Maybe we will talk. Maybe we will try to explain or understand. This is not a crime. This is also part of the inquiry. I say this to myself. I say this, of course, to Ruti, but I also say it to you, whoever you are, whenever you're listening to us, because we're very harsh on ourselves and on others when we listen. And if somebody says something and it sounds a bit fake or a bit arrogant or even a bit stupid, very easily we're like, I don't want to listen to this, it's useless. And it's a shame, because let's give ourselves a slack and listen also to the spaces between the words, to the energy, to where the person is coming from, and also to ourselves. It would be very good for us to practice listening from, not only from our conscious brain. Okay, that was a pretty long introduction. Today we're going to talk about loneliness. And we choose our topics according to what we see during the week, what we experience within our lives and the people around us. And I live in Berlin. Ruti lives in Israel. And I see and hear and feel in the big city, in quarantine, in the lockdown, in winter, a lot of loneliness. But I'm pretty sure it's not only in Corona times. And my mind goes to two places when I think about it or when I feel about it. One says it's so tempting to isolate in a way that I don't need to explain myself to anyone. I don't need to consider anyone's needs. I don't need to hear anyone's opinions. I don't need, I can live in my own mess. I can do what I feel like. And I don't say this, I really feel the advantage of that. And if I'm a person that is, let's say, rich from within, in terms that I keep myself busy, I have my hobbies, I have interests, then I'm on the good side of this scenario. And then I say, poof, great. And then I turn to the other side of it, and there's something in me that says, look at people you know and see, feel them. They're not happy. So what is happening there? I mean, it's not that they're not happy in a way that they don't have their interest or they don't keep themselves busy. There's just a very constant frequency. I don't know exactly how to call it. It's always this frequency of depression, I'd call it. And it makes me, sorry, it makes me ask, who are the lonely people in terms of, is there a certain kind or is there a certain pattern or a way of thinking that it starts from within and then reality kind of follows and they become lonely? And the other question is, what can one do when they're already in this setting to open up? And yeah, so maybe we can take it from those two questions. And of course, if you have something to add before we answer.
I would start with the first one because I think that it's more accurate not to think of who are those people, but what characterizes their way of thinking, their basic approach to life, and the way, therefore, they dance with life, as we call it. I think that the major understanding that when we lack it, it causes us to really go against ourselves, is that we are happy, we are really alive, not dead, but really alive, when we allow ourselves to flow, meaning to understand that if I keep things to myself, if I protect them, if I hold on to them, if I don't let go and let them be, then I'm blocking the natural movement, the natural flow of being a human being. What we call giving, which is a mistake because it comes from the mind and it talks about two different entities that give and take. But if we flow in the sense of flowing our wisdom, our beauty, our way of seeing things, our dreams, our needs, and we let it flow like even, on a continuous basis to others, then first of all, literally, and I would really say physically, we are alive. The movement is there. It can flow easily. I'm not blocking anything. I am not narrowing things, narrowing the passage in any way. I just let it flow. And then when I do that, the other person or people. Other people are reacting to me because the abundance that you gave me reflects in me and evokes in me immediately more. And then the flow that you are flowing towards me becomes my flow. Okay, it doesn't have to be the same opinion or the same way of thinking. That's not important.
Doesn't even have to be pleasant.
Right.
Like sometimes we actually have a lot of communication. We have a lot of people in our lives, but maybe it's not in the way we would expect or want it to be.
Right.
So we consider ourselves lonely, but actually we have a lot of interaction. We have a lot of connections. Maybe we want to look at the feature of these connections. But so you know what? Maybe it's good to pause for a moment and say what we actually mean when we say loneliness, because there are different ways to say it, or to say what it is.
Yeah.
So what I mean when I talk about loneliness, I mean people who live alone, meaning like no partners, no roommates, no family. I think these are the ways of living with people. And I mean that they maybe have relationships in their lives, but first of all, they are not consider those relationships very intimate and close. And also they don't meet very often. That's in my head when I say loneliness or living in loneliness, it's kind of like that. And when they want to call someone, usually it wouldn't even, like, it would be kind of to say, okay, like check on that. This encounter doesn't necessarily satisfying me.
Yeah.
Is it okay for you? I mean, are we in the same?
No.
Good, then it's good that we paused.
Yeah. These things that you described are external. They are shapes and forms. Okay. I encounter much loneliness when I coach people, and also in my married life at a certain point, great loneliness, deep loneliness. And nothing of what you said describes that loneliness, okay? Because it doesn't have to do with the way it manifests itself, the way you can see things, okay? One can live alone and be utterly not lonely, okay? And someone can live with many people and feel very lonely. So
exactly. So are we only talking about the feeling of lonely, experience of loneliness, or are we also talking about the setting? The external
I don't think there is something to say about the setting. That's what I'm actually saying now.
Okay.
Maybe you'll see differently and you'll show it to me. But from my perspective, the setting, what we see sometimes is that when a person is lonely, as I would describe it in a moment, or suggest to look at in a moment, then sometimes they live alone, sometimes they encounter the loneliness. But no, I'm sorry. Sometimes you can see the setting reflecting their inner loneliness, but the same setting can utterly show a different thing. It can show satisfaction and fullness and obedience to a certain period of life where you're more with yourself, you're more introvert, not in the bad sense, but you are maybe with God, maybe you're really in an inquiry that is good to be done just between you and the world and you and and yourself. So I don't see that the setting is something that can say this. I think the inner movement, or the way we perceive ourselves in the world, and especially the relationship we develop with the world, that is what makes someone lonely or not. And that's loneliness. That's where also suffering comes into the picture, or the feeling of insignificance, because it's like there's no life in my life. That's the feeling of deep loneliness. It's like something dead, something that's not alive. And it doesn't have to do with an external setting. Okay. Mm-hmm. So if I describe, and challenge me if you think that I'm missing something, or you think that I'm distorting something or not paying attention, then do tell me.
I will, but first I want you to talk a bit more about why is it happening to us, what is the thoughts or the patterns that leads us to there? Because if our nature is to be one with everything, then what is all the lonely people? Where do they all come from? Where do they all belong?
Right. So I think that's what you said now is exactly the description of loneliness. It's that we go against our true nature. Okay, it's like when we don't listen, and even I would say not obey our nature, and we think we know better, and we think we are the one who are to protect ourselves, and we're the ones to get ourselves wherever we need to go, and then the world becomes either a means to an end or an obstacle. I'm sorry. Exactly. Speaking about loneliness, he was left now alone and is crying. I'm just going to open the door.
Bring the dog. You're gonna meet the prettiest dog now. Hello, Jeep. Hey.
What Jeep?
Speaking of loneliness.
Yeah, he got lonely. Yeah. He says thanks. So when we really feel that we are alone in the world, need to cope, then we become our protectors, our own protectors. And we become, in a way, our own gods. We become our own, we believe, I would say differently, we believe that what we are is our needs, our dreams, our desires, and our fears. And that we need to somehow find a way to manage those in order to protect ourselves and also to become something of a significance, something of value. And there we become afraid because it's a challenge we cannot meet. And then we start to look at the world, as I said before, as a means to an end or as danger. That is why we also draw away from the world in many cases, and especially start living by conditions. I want proof. Before I open my heart, I want proof, and I want to make sure he won't make me hurt. And I want to make sure that I know where I'm going before I go, because I won't just let myself be. So that's the other thing. Another thing is I will open my heart, but I'm always checking to see what's happening. And if something makes me doubt, or I suspect that something is going to be painful, then I push it away. So all those conditions create loneliness in two major dimensions. One is that I withdraw from the world until I decide to approach or to be. So actually, I isolate myself, thinking that I'm doing the best thing for myself, because we believe in the world of fear. We believe that the world is dangerous and that I'm lacking and missing and very, very vulnerable. So I walk in the world coping and trying to somehow better my position, better my, put more circumstances to my favor instead of to others.
Yeah, and often the best position would be my safe space, which slowly becomes narrower and smaller.
And it's really significant what you said now, because it's like an addiction. When I believe that I need something or must have something, and I give myself that because I believe that I must have it, then next time the mind demands more and the fear demands more. And that is something that, like in addiction, in any addiction, every time the addiction calls for more than what we had before, stronger, more fierce, more in quantity, greater in quantity. So what actually happens there is that from the mistaken thought that I'm protecting myself and that I'm allowing myself, I'm exercising my rights, and I'm allowing myself to have what I want and to not let anyone else tell me what to do, actually I become addictive. And the safe space that I demand for myself, my fear of others invading my space, my fear of, because I'm in my head thinking, what are they thinking of me? How will it be to be there with them? That is something that becomes what actually runs my life. That is what I make my decisions according to. That is what I see that I need, and from there.
So let's take this from here, and let's say that I notice what you're saying in my life. Okay, I notice this sensation of I'm alive, but I'm not really alive. I notice that I'm very suspicious. I notice that I think a lot before I meet people, and not even talking about dating and stuff. I noticed that I got to a conclusion during my life. Well, I heard so much, so I'd better think very carefully before I give my heart away. I am motivated by the thought that people are hurtful and they will patronize me and they will try to use me if they can. So I want to protect myself. And in general, that the world is dangerous, like you said. So let's say I hear you, I'm one of the people who are listening now, and I say, yeah, I recognize this in my life. And I want to be a student now, yeah? I want to learn. So what would you say I can do in my daily life? What should I pay attention to? And how can I start, I don't know if that's the word, but breaking this pattern? Because it's not just something I can say, okay, so she says that the world is not dangerous, I'm not vulnerable, so I'll just go out there. No. So what can I pay attention in myself what would be like the first steps for a person
First
that
step,
feels lonely?
the first step that I would make is to ask myself, when I protect myself, how am I doing? Do I become more happy?
Hmm.
Do I become more loving? Do I become more, interested in life and in people? Do I create relationships that work better? Do I accomplish in work more? Do I have more friends? Am I a good friend? Am I a better friend? And I would look at any aspect of life which I personally, each and every person, consider to be important. And I would ask, when I protect myself and when I do whatever we described now that the mind is telling me to do because the world is dangerous and I am vulnerable, is my life better? Am I more happy? Am I loving more? Am I joyous? Or do I become more dead or more like an old person, not in the sense of age, but in the sense of sometimes bitterness, sometimes my eyes are fixed on the past. Sometimes I become this, as you described that, it's like a bunch of conclusions, collection of conclusions that the mind concluded for me when I was alive, believing in people, allowing them to come close. And then obviously sometimes I was hurt, and then the mind said, oh, good, that I'm glad that you acknowledge. I now know that you made a mistake by opening your heart. So let me tell you what to do from now on. And then we begin that. And that is something that's very sad, because we become like a thing that's about to die and still alive until we die. And I can see that also in young people's eyes today. It's not only old people. That's really sad when I see that.
So
Okay?
first of all, I would want to notice, am I protecting myself right now? When I speak, when I listen, even maybe before I even speak, I can protect myself just by the way I listen.
Right.
Even
yeah. By the way of what I hear and don't hear. That's an exclusive way of.
Yeah, that's what conclusions do. I am in my conclusion, and nothing that doesn't fit this conclusion can't enter my view.
Exactly.
So that would be another thing I would notice. Am I already in my conclusion, or am I actually in what really is?
Yeah, but the thing is that when we got used to think that it's responsible to conclude and to derive, and then we ask this question, then we'll say, no, I'm seeing anything. It's like people with Alzheimer or any kind of amnesia. They think they see everything.
So how can I know if I am stuck in my conclusion, or am I actually in what really is? I don't mean, of course, what really is, but in what really is.
So the first thing is what I said before. I need to see that I think I'm acting responsibly by withdrawing, by looking for proof, by putting conditions to actually opening my heart or coming close or giving myself over, God forbid. Yeah. And then I want to ask, is it working? Is what I'm doing giving me what I set out to have? Is it really protecting me? And is it really creating the life that I really wish to have? And we're in for a surprise. Okay, so that's the first thing, which allows me to see that I'm working on some kind of a story, some kind of a parallel world, which I invented or I inherited and then accepted. And it actually creates for me the exact opposite reality than
There's
what
something
I'm sure.
There's something very important that we didn't say, because I go with what you're saying, and I am this person, and I'm asking myself, is that the result I want? Let's say I protected myself, I behaved in this habit of mine or protecting myself, and then I'm asking myself, is this what I want? Is the life that I want? Did I get what I hoped for? And in a second, my mind tells me, yeah, look, you have a nice house, you're making money, you have friends, yeah. So, and then I'm back. Mm-hmm. So what I think is very important to say is, well, like in those steps, is to first of all feel, get way closer to feeling, and learn the difference between feeling and thinking. Often when I ask people, what do you feel? And they say, I feel that I'm pretty okay. That's a thought.
Yeah.
I feel that I did the right thing. That's a thought. A feeling is pain, sadness, fear, anger, joy, frustration. Even if I don't say like the feeling, but I say, I feel that my heart is beating. I feel that my throat is choked. I feel that my eyebrows are shrink. I feel disoriented. Even going to sensations, I would say it's an important step because it keeps us from immediately going to our head.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a very important step I would like to mention. Most of us don't even know that there is an option not going to the head. Yeah. It happens so fast. And I don't think nobody really taught us to pause and stay in a feeling. Yesterday, a friend told me, we were having a conversation about this, and she said, okay, but when I get scared, what do I do? So I told her, be scared. And it was shocking. She was shocked that she didn't think about it. Why do you need to do something? You're scared. Do that. So
let's continue from here. It was a really important addition or emphasis. So on the one hand, I begin always with feeling and sensation so that I'm connected to where I am now at the moment within me. Okay, because when I'm afraid, it doesn't mean that what's happening is something is dangerous, is something I need to be afraid of. But it does say that for me now, I experience fear. So that from there I begin, and then I look and I say, maybe I talked very, very, my speech was very coherent, very, very, together. And I really made the statement, and I know that I'm proud of myself, and I get out of the room and I feel like sad or heavy. So that would tell me that whatever the mind was directing me to do in order to reach something, I must reach something, or I must avoid or protect myself from something, that didn't work. Something was there missing. I wasn't really present. I was coming out of lacking and missing. So when I have this sensation, it's like something within me is really speaking to me. It's a voice within me that's speaking to me, and I can pay attention to it. So that's the first thing when I ask myself, am I really living the life that I want to live? And it's not coming from here. Okay, it's like I can speak with my my spouse, and I can really make a point, and I think that that I have a good point, and that he should have heard this, but then I feel very lonely. So I want to ask myself, what am I doing? And is what I'm doing creating the life that I wish to have, or more importantly, listening to the real wisdom within me? Or is it an artificial wisdom, a wisdom we've created during life when we run in many cases by fear and greed, which is not our nature. It's not the nature of things. Okay, just one moment. So I want to go to the other side, the next, it's not exactly a step, because it's what we'll say in a moment is that it's a movement between those two. One is looking and saying, what is the reality that I'm actually creating, not the reality that the mind is saying to me that it will create for me, or that my actions will create, but what is actually happening to my blood flow, to my breath, to the way I see people, to the way I relate, to the way I wake up in the morning. Are there anxieties when I wake up in the morning? Do I feel all stressed? Do I need, take some time to put myself together so I can cope with the outside world? Look at that, pay attention to that. That is the result of loneliness that I'm creating to myself by separating myself from the world, believing that I am a different entity, trying to cope, to manage, to survive, and to have more, so that in a dangerous world, whoever has more is in a better condition, a better spot. But the next phase, or the next thing that I wish to talk about, is that if these actions and these understandings are not reflecting the natural movement of things, it is not really in correlation to my true nature as a human being, then I would like to start asking, then what is? What is our true nature? What is the world if it's not a thought, and it's not a battleground, and it's not a dangerous place to cope with, or to even try surviving? Then what is it? When we allow ourselves to ask this question and repeatedly come to remind ourselves that it is not a thought, it is not a story, but if I really let go and open my heart, what is the natural movement that would come out of me, not because I decided to, not because I concluded that it is the right thing to do or whatever is best for me, but because there's another wisdom. Again, I'm saying this because it's really important to know. We don't reach out to that wisdom, which is a natural one, and we deal so much with the artificial wisdom which we've created and its consequences, because the artificial wisdom is not the way things really are. And that's why we're all the time in friction, and in new problems are emerging, because it's like driving in the opposite direction, or looking at the mirror instead of the windshield. So actually, in the book, chapter 3, which deals with what we call what is true. Okay, it's not the truth. It's not a new Messiah is coming. It's not a new dogma or method or whatever. It's just like when I walk in the world and I don't relate to it through our thoughts, then what's left? Okay, and then we try to suggest, it's like notes. It's like when you hear music, it's like the notes, the frequency that if you pay attention to, you will be able to see. So for example, if I acknowledge the fact that I am one with everyone. And it's not poetry. It's like my arm is one with my leg. And if I don't notice it and I do not respect it, it might be of grave consequences. Then I start to pause and to reflect on it, not in a philosophical manner, maybe a bit, which is nice, but it's like, so how do I go about it? So if I encounter someone who I see is trying to take my place at work, okay, he's desiring my position and he's trying to show me in a bad light and then take my place. In the world of fear, he is all immediately the enemy. I'm all immediately in danger, and then I need to tackle, cope, survive. But if I listen to what he's doing and I see what he's doing, but I come out of this oneness with him, so maybe I would say to myself, maybe it's time to move on, which is a great way to get the sign, to listen to signs sometimes and say, I'm glad that he did that, because I could sit here for 2 more years easily. The money is good, but actually it's time for me to move on. Maybe I will move to another position, not even advancing to a new, managerial or whatever position, but I would say to myself, I worked enough with the cloud. Now I really want to work with user interface, and then I move over.
Yeah, but what if you want the cloud and you want this position?
So wait, I just started.
Sorry.
Sometimes it would be that sign. Then I would say, well, it's good that I listened. The second thing is that I would approach him and I would say to him, why do you think that it's better for you to be there? I see that you're really trying. And if I'm really convinced, then maybe I would let him have my position. It's like being in the supermarket and someone comes to me and says, listen, these plums are really, they look great. And I have no more money for today in my budget. I cannot make another expense. Can you give me a present? And I would. Okay, so that's another way of really acknowledging that we are one.
Yeah, actually, when you're saying this, there are endless possibilities of how to deal with it, because right. I am not fixed on what I think I need or want. Exactly. And I also suddenly I love him.
Right, I care for him.
I care for him, and if he wants it so bad,
maybe I'll give it.
Maybe we can do this together.
Right,
maybe
so that's the other thing. So yeah. Sometimes we'll do that together. Sometimes we'll create something that's better.
And also I can ask him, wait, I heard that you're saying not so nice things about me regarding this position. Do you really think this about me?
Right.
Because I want to know, like, am I being selfish and too dominant, or I don't know, whatever that you're saying? Where did you see it? I mean, I don't want to be like that. I didn't notice. Yeah, and suddenly it's like, he's my teacher. He's not my enemy.
Right. And sometimes, let's go to the other extreme. What if someone is lying, working behind my back, saying bad things about me behind my back, and being hypocrites with me? Okay? So then the first thing that I would address, meaning the first thing that would come up, and I would allow it to come up as you did with your friend, is the fear that I'm in danger. Okay, and then what I would like myself to ask is, what danger am I in? Okay, let's say that he says bad things about me, and not trying to be, spiritual in La La Land, but really asking, what would it do to me if he's saying bad things about me? And of course, he can convince other people and so on, but then going along with that, So what does it say about me, or what does it really do to me? Okay, if he does that, and in what danger does it put me? Does he put me? And when I look at it truly and with an open heart, but really with an open eyes also, I would see that my fears are because I look at myself as separated from everything, and I need to take care of myself. But what if I would look at myself, I would look at myself as one with everything, meaning that I know that I am supported by many forces around me, by many people, by my manager. I know that they are also, they have hearts that listen and know, and that my acceptance of their love and the way they see me and the way I treat them from there is one part of the story. And another part of the story is that when they don't see me, or they're not there for me, or maybe they would even give up on me, I want to ask what really happens to me. Okay, so I might lose my job. I'm smiling because in the last period, there were a few people whom I'm coaching who lost their job, or at least were, let go for a while. And they are all prospering and making more money than they made before. Okay, because they had to go back to their source, to their true nature. They couldn't hold on anymore to things that were that they thought gave them security or protected them from the world. So they became alive, they became creative. They wouldn't have chosen to go there if you'd asked them in the beginning. But
yeah, but if you consider this from your mind, and probably if you talk about it with people and this level of like thought, in the realm of thoughts, it's it doesn't make much sense, and in some cases it really feels like a suicidal action.
Yeah, right.
To
That's
do that.
why we began with the first one, because the first one was to see that whatever we believe is responsible in so many cases, I'm not saying all, but in so many cases, it creates for us the exact opposite reality of what we wish, and more importantly, what really gives life to us, what really makes us happy and creative and more insightful and more able and more rich. I create the exact opposite reality to myself, and I become more and more afraid.
No.
Let's take this. I just remind you that we are speaking about loneliness.
Exactly.
So actually, what we said now correlates exactly to loneliness, because when I try to control, to protect, and to achieve and to reach, then I am against the world, or I'm using the world. Okay, that's what happens. So
would you say it's in a way this means that, because my next question is, if I feel lonely, does it necessarily means that I am protecting myself and the key is in my hands?
Yes.
Okay, that's quite of a statement.
Yeah, that's why, and that's why the important first step, which may also be the only one needed, because then the other one, we know the wisdom is within us. So once we stop interrupting by separating ourselves, isolating ourselves, putting more and more conditions and constraints on just being there with an open heart, living, then the other dimension, that our nature just, it knows how to be. It's our nature. We don't need to learn this. We just need to unlearn sometimes. That's because we really interrupt this. I would say just one more thing about loneliness. So the second thing, in addition to what you just said, is that we identify with our thoughts. So once we separate ourselves and we protect ourselves from the world, and we protect and we identify with our thoughts, then his eyes, her touch, his cooking, the wine she brought, cannot interrupt my conclusions, because I draw away and I build a wall. Okay, because the conclusions are actually making the conclusions that we made knowingly or unknowingly, we've reached unknowingly or unknowingly. They make them the only filter, the only glasses that we look through. And that's where we become really lonely, because then the world as it comes, even if a beggar asks me for money, or someone sits next to me in the tube, or even a man makes a remark that has a nuance of something unpleasant, but I look in his eyes. Okay, sometimes I can even say, I don't think that's what you wanted to say to me. And sometimes I would just look at him and I would say, it hurts. And by saying this, not by saying to him, you don't, but by saying this, it's actually seeing him and calling him, okay? And knowing that within him, there is this person, and I know this because we are one. So it cannot be. Okay, it doesn't mean that I will never protect myself from something or never get further away from something. Of course we will, but that is only because we couldn't find another way. Okay, not because it's the right thing to do, in the sense that I draw away, I get further and further away from the world, put more and more conditions. The world looks more and more intimidating, more and more complex, more and more dangerous, and I don't let anything interrupt this way of seeing things. And that's why it's so important, because that's why it is utterly in our hands.
So here, the last two, two points that I stay very strongly with are, and they are of course connected, is what you said before, is to say that if I'm not my thoughts and I'm not my conclusions, and the world is not made of thoughts and conclusions, then what is my nature? Then what am I? If I'm not my thoughts, then what am I? Only this questions already makes this move, and I don't have to answer, but just questioning already puts me in another state of mind, or even say state of being. That's one thing that is very powerful. And the second one, when you talked, the term reality check was very strong, and I heard it in my head. Because if I cannot, in a way, what we're saying is you cannot trust your thoughts. So let reality tell you what is happening.
But wait, if you do that and you still are looking from your thoughts, your reality check is not viable, and you don't know this. That's why it's so important to allow the world, first of all, to come closer and closer and closer and closer until you know you can never go further. I mean, you can never draw away. We're one. You cannot draw away, cannot separate. You cannot. But since we live as if we can, we cause much suffering. If I let the world, if I always come closer, always open my heart, always let go of my opinions and my principles, and just let the world really encounter me, and let myself encounter the world, and let the world interrupt me in these readings of the reality check, then I'm really reality checking. Until then, I'm looking from my mind and my thoughts and their way of looking at things. Logic, what we call logic, is the filter through which I see the world, and that's not a reality check.
And feeling.
Yeah.
Feeling.
Right.
I would put this on the,
yeah,
on like above my screen.
Yeah.
Don't forget to feel. Okay. You're very invited to comment and to ask questions and to...
I want to say something more. I know we're late, but doing all this without compassion to oneself is torment. Yeah. So we need to know, need in the sense that if we come from tenderness to ourselves, we need to acknowledge that we are confused, and we've grown to believe that this confusion is called responsibility and reality checking, so that it might take time, and it might also be difficult, and I might go 2 steps and then 1 step back. Allow yourself to do this in your own rhythm, and love yourself while you're doing it. Appreciate yourselves while you're doing that. Because unless you do that, you become your own judge, and that's terrible.
Yeah, and also remind your friends or the people around you that maybe you noticed something about yourself and you want to explore, to transform, and you want to change this habit or to change this pattern. So first of all, share this with them, because they can really help us.
Right.
Just by being, and also by being patient with us, because we will change, and we might be annoying, we might be slow, we might be very like very determined and confident that now we saw something, and in a week we will see, oh well. So yeah, it's a joint journey. Speaking of loneliness, like you're saying, we're one. So it's a great tool to ask for each other's support. And of course, your friends will also benefit a lot from this, from being there for you and learn with you. And they will learn so much about themselves and open up so much thanks to you. Daring to step out, showing up, let things get closer.
Beautiful.
Good. So again, thank you, Ruti. And yeah, what I started saying before, feel free to comment and to share and to write to us on our website, whatreallyis.com, and Facebook and YouTube. We're here, and the wisdom really is for all of us, and we all have it. So we can, like I said, really, really learn from each other. Confusions and insights. And see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.